Hey everyone, my name is Colin O'Brien. I'm a golf professional and social chemist, and I'm going to be releasing a series of videos where I'm going to be doing golf tips and then also matching those up, with a cocktail recipe. And so we're going to have all 19 holes covered. So I'm the golf professional here at Max Fit Sports, which is in Glassboro, New Jersey. This is our simulator that we use here. And so the first of the tips that we're going to do, the first series, is going to be a series of 3, and it's going to be building the foundation for your swing. Building a golf swing is pretty much like building a house. So what you need are the foundation pieces in place, otherwise the rest of the house is going to collapse pretty quickly. A golf swing is going to come from 3 things as its foundation. You're going to start with a grip, and then your stance, and then your alignment. So the grip is going to be obviously how you're holding the club. Stance is going to be how your posture is, where you're bending at the knees, this, that, and the other. And then your alignment is how you're actually aiming up towards your target. So today's lesson or quick tip is going to be establishing your grip. So the big no-no for most people that are just getting started is that they will do what's called a 10-finger grip. So they're just going to grab the club and they're going to wrap all 10 fingers around. It's not the worst case scenario. However, it's not the best by far. So because your hands now are not really working together, you've got them working independently of each other. So what we want to do is create a grip that has the hands working together, and there are 2 basic options for doing so. But before we even get into that, what we want to establish is where to even hold the club in your hand, because that's another one too, especially with the 10-finger grip. A lot of that will end up happening right here in the palm. So you're going to have the club set there. Where we want the club set is here, somewhere at the base of the fingers, top of the palm. That's where you should be holding it. So what we're going to do is start with our top hand. So for a right-handed golfer, that's going to be your left hand. For a left-handed golfer, it's going to be your right. And what we're going to do is seat that club right there in the top of the palm, base of the fingers. Then we're going to wrap our hand around that club gently, as it were. We don't want to death grip this thing at any point. And we're going to get our thumb going straight down the grip down the shaft towards the head. So now what we're going to do from there is we're going to have to marry up that right side. So the right hand is going to come in, and again, this is the opposite for the lefties, but the right hand is going to come in, and you have one of 2 options. This is an overlap grip, but this is actually established by a guy named Harry Bartending back in the day, and so it is called traditionally the Varden grip. So you're going to have your hands working together, they're cinched in together, and then that pinky is now overlapping in that area right in between the index and middle finger of the left hand. So that's one option, and then the other option is to do an overlap grip. So that's the one that I use actually. So what I'm going to do is take that pinky, and instead of overlapping it, I'm going to actually hook it in with that index finger. And again, I'm very conscious of making sure that right hand is now also at the top of the palm, base of the fingers there. Again, that's where we're holding it. Now, the next thing that gets overlooked a lot is the pressure. So grip pressure is going to be the key to almost anything, because you can have a proper grip and you can be holding the club great in every way, shape, or form. It's like this is a pretty neutral grip here, and what we mean by neutral is that there's no one hand overlapping the other or pulling away from the other or turned around the grip, which would be considered strong or weak. Okay, this is very neutral at this point. And so what we want to make sure of, though, is that we are not clenching down on this club, because if we tense up in the hands, everything else tenses up all the way up. So now we have a very constricted upper body based on we're death gripping that club. So what we want to do is establish, I stole this one from Tom Watson. He was talking about this at one point, where he'd hold the club up and he'd get to the point where he would feel like the club was just about to slip through his fingers. And then from there, you lay the club down and you let that club head weight put the pressure that you're going to need inside of that base of the fingers, top of the palm. And now you have all the grip pressure that you're going to need. There's freedom of movement now, and we're not fighting to keep that there. All right, so those are your options. Figure out what you're comfortable with, and now let's go make a cocktail. Get to the 19th hole. All right, so we've gone over the grip, and now we were promised a cocktail recipe. So what I'm doing today is going to be a classic margarita made from scratch. It's gonna be my version of it though. We're gonna have a few little tweaks over what would normally go into it. And that is just because that's the way I like it. And so I hope you enjoy it as well. So what we're gonna start with here is the building blocks, like we're doing with the grip and the stance that's coming up and all that sort of stuff in the golf swing, is that we are going to be building a foundation here and for a margarita. So the foundation for a margarita is going to be tequila, lime juice, and then it normally calls for triple sec, and then a agave or simple syrup is an optional sweetener. So for mine though, I told you I was gonna switch it up a little bit. For what I like to do is I take out the triple sec part and I put in Grand Marnier instead, which is an orange flavored liqueur. So I'm going to be using that instead. And then I do like to add a little bit of the sweetener, and I prefer agave to a simple syrup, especially for this kind of drink. So, and I'm also going to you have the option on any margarita is to salt the rim. So I'm going to be salting the rim as well as part of this. So let's get cracking. So the first thing we're going to do is we're looking for a shaker, and we're going to need a jigger for those who can't free pour yet. So we have an 1.5 ounce side and an ounce side, and I'll go over the parts for you for those. I would normally free pour most of this, minus say the lime juice or what have you that doesn't have a speed pour option usually to it, so that you can have a count. So in terms of the basics that we're going over in golf, the basics here as well is if you get good at it after a while, you can take an empty bottle of anything and fill it up with water, put one of these speed pours on there, and then get your count for what an 1.5 ounce pour is, which is what a standard drink is gonna have. Okay, for today's purposes though, we are going to, we're gonna spice it up a little bit here, and because we're at home, we're not out at the bar or what have you, instead of an 1.5 ounce pour, we're gonna go with 2 ounces of the tequila to go in there. So the first thing I'm gonna need is ice for the shaker here. So we're gonna pour everything that we're building this drink in over ice. So I'm gonna do a 2 ounce pour of the tequila, and I am using Espolon Blanco as my tequila for this margarita. Okay, so that's 2 ounces of that. Then we are looking normally for an ounce of the triple sec. I'm going to use an ounce of the Grand Marnier instead. I'm going to pop that in there. And then the general prescribed thing, I'm going to grab it out of the fridge here, is my lime juice. I only use 100% real lime juice if I'm not fresh squeezing it myself. You don't want any of the imitation stuff. And certainly not a sweetened lime juice in this case. So for this, we are going to do, I like mine to be a little more on the tart side. Normally it'd be like 3/4 ounce of lime juice and then 3/4 ounce of your simple syrup or agave. I like to go more like an ounce, maybe an ounce plus, an 1.25 ounces if we do with the lime juice, because I do again like it to be a little bit more tart than I like it to be sweet. So that's going to be an ounce. And then I'm just gonna pop a little extra in there, okay? And then I'm gonna do what I think maybe is like a 1/2 ounce of the agave. So we're not going to get that thing quite full. It's going to be more like 3/4 full. So that's going to be the agave nectar in there. Okay, so now we've got the whole thing built. We've got our pieces together. But because I said I like to salt the rim, I'm going to actually do that first here, because then I'm going to add this little piece into this mix, because why not? So what we're going to do to salt the rim is you're going to go grab some margarita salt. I'm using Twang's margarita salt. And then I take a cut lime that I've already cut. It was kind of a small lime. Normally I would cut the lime into wedges as opposed to wheels, but it was a very small lime, so I'm going to use the wheel here. And we're just going to get some of that lime juice right around the rim of the glass. Okay. And then I'm just going to pop, just for fun, I'm going to pop the rest of that lime piece right into the shaker there, so we just get a touch more of that lime tart. And I'm going to stick this right here in there, and we get a nice salted rim. Now from there, I'm going to set myself up so that I can pour this drink almost immediately after it's done shaking. I'm going to try not to grab too much ice at a time so that I can load it in and not lose a whole lot of that salt. All right, I've got my margarita concoction in here. We're going to give it a good shake. For novices and those with, say, smaller hands, you're going to want to go with the two-handed method here, okay? I prefer to go one, but that's because I have larger hands, and just, I don't know, just makes me feel better with one. Okay. All right. Once we get that a good shake, you can kind of feel it in your hand. It's really getting iced up. It's a nice solid mix. Okay, we're going to get that top off in there. We've actually really wedged it on there because of how cold we got it. I'm going to get that top off. There we go. I'm going to stick my strainer in, and we are going to pour that right on top. Okay. Now this is a very large glass, by the way. This is normally for an old fashioned. So, and then I'm going to stick that other lime wheel that I've already cut right there on the corner. Classic margarita. Oh, that is delightful. All right, we'll see you next time.